Today we have Jack from Long Island Clean Water, and he's going to talk to us about water filtration systems and the overall state of our Long Island water.
Thank you very much, Michael. Appreciate your inviting me to be here today. And unfortunately, water filtration is something that is needed here on Long Island for a number of different reasons. Unlike New York City, which gets its water from reservoirs upstate, basically you're talking mountain water, melting snow, rain, that kind of thing. Long Island water comes from under the ground, which in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. But if you think about everything that has been dumped, leaked, and spilled over the last 100+ years here on Long Island, it's all worked its way down into our only source of water, like a giant sponge. And unfortunately, the water districts do the best job they can with what they have to work with, but there's a lot of stuff in our water that they just don't have the ability yet to address. And that's where a company like mine prides itself on putting out the top-of-the-line water systems that address as much of the issues we have here on Long Island that the current technology we have available can do, and everything that we install is also made here.
What about the infrastructure, the pipes, everything? I mean, the water is underground, but it's going through pipes. Like, how does that all come into play?
Great point. So Nassau County and Western Suffolk was really the first suburbs that were developed going back to the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And a lot of the infrastructure, the pipes under the streets, both water mains and sewer lines in a lot of places are original. So you're talking 70, 80, in some places well over 100-year-old plumbing that's delivering the water to your home. Not to mention the very old homes that most of us live in. The house I grew up in was built in the 50s. I live in one now that was built in the 20s. So you're talking about 70 to 100-year-old plumbing also in the house.
Well, you put a water filtration system in my house, and my house was built in 1918. So I already know the pipes in there are old. And even, for instance, I think I mentioned to you that I was driving one day through a town and saw them taking up pipes from underneath the ground, and they were fluorescent orange and rusted. And I thought, that looks good.
Yeah. And in conjunction with that, with some of these much older communities, we're actually seeing the water mains under the streets starting to actually break down and spiking things like lead into homes. Most people that we know these days in the last 6 months have gotten some sort of letter, email communication from their water district notifying them that the levels of lead in their water might be above the EPA's maximum. They're doing what they can to address those in those instances, but also by putting out those notices, they are also putting the public aware, and it somewhat absolves them of the immediacy of needing to do something for their...
Without getting into all that bureaucracy, obviously clean water is so important to us. Water is life. And, with all the problems that people have, cancer-related, things like that, there's so many things that could come into play. I mean, even when you think about homes and the beautiful lawns, everyone wants to have the nicest lawn on Long Island.
Sure.
But the pesticides and everything that's put into our lawns, where does it all go, and how does it...
It all slowly works its way down into our water supply. Not to mention, we have many homes in Suffolk and on the North Shore of Long Island that don't have sewers. They actually have septic systems and cesspools, which are giant tanks buried in their yard that collects all of the waste, whether it's flushed, drain, or what have you, that ultimately then leaches down into the ground above our water supply. Kind of makes for a lovely thought.
So I'm sure, going back to what they could do to help us, there's some articles and cases and things like that that people would probably never hear about on their local news or even see online and things like that going on.
Sure. I mean, thankfully, the news, whether it's News 12, radio, what have you, they have been publicizing a lot of these issues as they've come up.
Good to hear.
In the Bethpage area, some of the old Grumman sites that were given away as playgrounds. They're now finding 60, 70-year-old buried tanks of all kinds of stuff under these donated pieces of property that were then used as playgrounds and fields and things like that. So we're still discovering stuff that was buried under landfills and whatnot from 50, 60 years ago that, again, the water districts do what they can, but there's limitations. Their infrastructure is as old in most instances as the neighborhoods that were built.
Gifts for our children, right?
Totally.
Okay. So I know that you're going to do a water test for us today.
I am.
To show us the difference between filtered water and what's really coming into our homes and everywhere else. And I know that when you did this for me at my house, my jaw dropped. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. And
appreciate it. A couple other points I just wanted to bring up. A lot of people will go to bottled water and feel that that is a better alternative than the water that's coming out of their tap in the sink in their kitchen, or whether it's their bathroom. And depending upon the bottled water, that may or may not be actually the case. If it says purified on the label, typically that water has gone through a reverse osmosis process that actually will purify the water, which is typically much better bottled water-wise than your natural spring waters of the world, which may not be that natural or from the kind of a spring that most people would envision.
They're coming from a spring, which is translation out of a faucet somewhere.
Correct. As long as there's a spring connected to the source water within miles and miles, they're allowed to call it natural spring water, but in most instances it's local. Plus, any water that's sitting in plastic for any period of time, the plastic is leaching into not just our water, but our packaged foods and things like that. And terms like microplastics and nanoplastics are going to become more and more a part of our everyday conversation.
I read something the other day that said we're made up of a percentage of plastic probably at this point from everything we've taken into our bodies.
I wouldn't be surprised at all.
So, Jack, tell me about Long Island Clean Water and what you guys do.
Appreciate it. Thank you for asking, Michael. So Long Island Clean Water is a 40-year-old water filtration company that was started by the same husband and wife that still own it today and have organically grown it from the two of them to we're over 60 now people. We have 10 trucks on the road every day, servicing customers, installing new systems, and we pride ourselves on taking excellent care of our customers, which has taken excellent care of this company. And to be doing what we've been doing for 40 years, you really need to be taking excellent care of the customer. That's a central part of what we do. We're also Costco's partner here on Long Island for 10 years now as their water filtration partner. So when you see that kiosk that says water treatment in the store, that 800 number brings your information back to us from Costco, which is another thing we're very prideful of. It's a very high bar to achieve and to maintain, and Costco wants to make sure we're taking excellent care of their members as well, which is what we do routinely on a daily basis.
I was going to say that, I've used your company since you put the system in the house, and the service is great. People are nice. You said it's a husband and wife that are the original owners. You get that family kind of feel from it. And that's the kind of place that I would want to refer any of my clients to that are buying homes or have already lived in homes. I'm saying everyone do this. It's great. You can even tell the difference when you shower in it from the water.
You can.
So, health is number one for all our families. And just as I want to find you guys the best house to raise your families in and live life, I want you to have clean water too.
So all these things are important. We have systems that are just for cooking and drinking water, washing the things you're going to eat, which is a system we typically install under the sink. We also have systems for the whole house, for showering and bathing, washing your clothes, your dishes, your hot water system, and your plumbing. Ideally, those two systems work great together. Either system upgrades your water in the house tremendously, and that's part of what I do. Is I go individually to people's homes, I test the water with them and show them the different kind of systems, what they do, and we try to tailor as best as we can the right kind of system based on where they live, what they're looking to accomplish, and we want to give excellent customer service. So hopefully once they're happy, they may share us with some other people also.
That's great. And with social media the way it is today, you never really know what you're getting, but when you come over and do that test and you actually see it with your own eyes, I mean, like I said, my jaw drops. So it's definitely worth the time to at least have Jack in, and the investment